Our next speaker is Sergey Israelev, Head of Data Science and Analytics at Udmo. He will present a multifaceted approach to optimizing digital advertising spend towards desired outcomes using attention measurement and machine learning. Over to you, Sergey.
My name is Sergey Israelev, and I'm Head of Analytics and Data Science at Udmo, and I'll be talking about optimizing digital advertising spend. So the topics today, I'll make a quick intro to digital advertising and how Udmo fits into the ecosystem, and then I'll talk about attention measurement and how users' interactions with ads relate to typical ad performance metrics. Then I'll give an example of campaign optimization and how we use multiple approaches to help the advertiser achieve its goals. And finally, I'll touch on the technology that we use for analytics and optimization at Udmo. So to start, look at the digital advertising as a whole. There are two big players, really. So there are publishers who have websites and apps, and they want to sell their inventory to put ads on them, and then advertisers, on the other hand, who want to put their ads so that people see the ads. And from our perspective, so Udmo is a supply-side platform, so an SSP or an exchange. So we actually we aggregate supply from publishers and we pass it on to the demand-side platforms that are listed here. We integrated with all the major ones directly and with many others indirectly. And advertisers then use these platforms to buy ad spaces through us, and we hold an auction. And the way it works is that the user on their device loads a page or an app, and the publisher who owns the page sends us and many other people an ad request, and then we have something like an evaluation, which we call smart inventory. We evaluate this ad request and make a decision on what to do with it, and then we pass bid requests to multiple demand-side platforms, DSPs, that then send us bids with prices, and we hold an auction, and whoever wins gets to put an ad on the publisher page or app. And all this happens in 50 milliseconds, sometimes longer, but ballparks, minute, sub-second round trip. And it happens tens or hundreds of billions times a day. What is smart inventory, really? So we estimate a value of a particular request based on the probability of a particular outcome. So maybe we want viewability or so the ad to be viewable, or somebody to click on it, or we want the DSP to be likely to bid on it. So depending on the outcome, we can evaluate each ad opportunity, and then the ad server makes a decision. So, for example, if we were to say, look for viewability, viewability rate here on the screen. So on the left, we have typically we may have multiple ads, and we evaluate each ad opportunity and then only send the ad that meets the KPI minimum to the DSP. And that is possible because we have a very deep and granular picture of our inventory, and by using our ad measurement and attention measurement and machine learning that uses that data to create this opportunity to evaluate each ad. So what is ad measurement? So the basics are, so when the ad gets on the screen, it's really some JavaScript code running on the device most of the time. And this ad and JavaScript code can send signals to us, to publishers, to other people that describe what happens with it. So was the ad loaded? That's called an impression. Was the ad in view? So was it viewable? If so, what portion of the ad was in view and for how long? If it was a video, did it play? And finally, did it complete? Was there a click? So these are all the basics that pretty much everybody measures. And Udmo goes further, and we have some advanced metrics that are user-initiated interactions. In some formats, we have a carousel where there are multiple products in one ad, and the user can swipe left and right and look at different products. Of course, most people scroll, and they scroll up and down, and they may pay more attention if something is moving in the ad. On some ads, there is a possibility of expanding the ad by touching or clicking it. And we also measure touch when we can. And on some platforms, it's possible to see if a user potentially moved the device closer to their face if they saw something interesting, so it tilts. Okay, so Yieldmo was really founded on the premise that we can make the advertising, especially on mobile, a better experience for the users. And we developed many engaging formats that are more than just a banner or a static video, that are visually appealing, enhance user experience, but also they attract more attention. And when they attract more attention, we get better attention signals about people interested in or not interested in an ad. So, for example, on the left, where you see a Disney ad, it's what we call a hyperscroller. So something is changing while you're scrolling the ad up and down. And same with the other two formats. These are just examples. There are many more. So having these formats also empowers our backend AI with more signal, with better signal. So with all this measurement, we have over 75 metrics that can describe an ad impression. And these measurements are across multiple categories, such as attention, inventory, the user, for example, device type, the ad itself, and other things such as time. Data science team, really, so we have all this data, and we use it in pretty much we're focusing on three major things. One is analytics and insights, optimization, and then tools and infrastructure that power all of that. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, about tools and infrastructure. As far as insights versus optimization, like what is the difference? Both lead to data-driven products, but an insight product is consumed by humans. It drives macro decisions. It starts out usually as manual analysis and produces tables and visualizations, whereas optimization in our world is consumed by machines, drives micro decisions, frequently just at the impression level, starts out as source code and produces models and predictions. Let me now talk a little bit more about our attention signals and how they relate to other metrics. So let's first start with ad performance metrics. So these are the metrics that everybody in digital advertising world is familiar with. So viewability has become a performance metric in recent years. But there are different ways to measure viewability, and there could be something that we call exposed. So any pixels in view for any time. There could be 100 pixels of view. That was the whole ad for any amount of time, which we call fully in view. MRC is the Media Rating Council in the US that defined a standard of that 50% of the ad should be on screen for one continuous second to be considered viewable. This is for banner ads. And also a great metric is time in view, how long the ad was on screen, or any number of pixels were on screen. For video, it's the ad plays and ad quartile. So if the ad, let's say, is playing for a given number of seconds, say 15 seconds, each quartile sends a measurement. And finally, the completion is 100% viewed. Clicks have been around ever since digital advertising started, and a conversion is something people do online. So when you put something in your cart, or you subscribe for a newsletter or something like that, there is a signal that can be sent to usually the advertiser, but more often than not to their partners that need to measure the performance of their advertising and performance of their website. So that is an online conversion. We wanted to see if the user-initiated interactions that are unique to yield mode, such as scrolls and tilts, are related to these standard KPIs. And we took over 100 campaigns from last year on Yieldmo Marketplace, and we started looking at click-through rates, video completion rates, conversion rates, viewability, and look at it from a statistical significance perspective as well. First thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to see if an interaction on one ad tells us anything about a subsequent ad for the same user. So here we have, let's say, a user that sees user one, that sees an ad one, and then later they see another ad. And let's say some users have interactions on the first ad and some users don't. So we compare the performance on their second ad. Of course, that limits us a little bit to, or maybe a lot, to users who have more than one ad impression on the same campaign. However, the results were actually very encouraging, because for all three metrics, over 85% of campaigns had a higher performance on this data. We wanted to look at whether this performance can be explained by just viewability, because viewability is a major part of our measurement too, and we wanted to know if these interactions add any value to just viewability. So we compare, in this case, just for CTR, because it's on the same impression, we compare the impressions with interaction to impressions with either no interaction or viewable impressions. In particular, on the left column, you see, so we compared interaction impressions with either no interaction, exposed, so that's any pixels in view, fully in view, immersive viewable, and a few time in view ranges. And we saw that the median increase of in CTR for impressions with interactions was, as shown on the table, over 60% at least for the most part. So this tells us that viewability cannot by itself explain everything that we measure with user-initiated interactions, and it's very important. And we sort of knew that because we know that machine learning models that use this data are much more efficient than those that just use viewability. But this was an analysis to kind of isolate the issue and make it more explainable to everybody. All right. So let's move on to optimization. And I'll talk about just an example of campaign spend and attribution optimization. We had a large B2C, so business to consumer advertiser, which was on mobile web and display ads, so static images. So the target event was a conversion, and it was a website action that where a user indicated an interest, requested more information about the product. This particular advertiser was actually quite advanced in that, unlike many and pretty standard way of measuring success by just the conversion rates, they measure incremental conversions relative to showing no ads. So let's say if you show no ads whatsoever, some people will go ahead and ask for this information. So there will be some baseline conversion rates. Then people who saw the ads are more likely to ask for this information because they saw the ad. And that's the difference. And for attribution, so how do we know if a particular conversion was relevant to a particular ad impression? Previously, we used the last touch attribution, which is the following. So first of all, it's based on web browser cookies, so user IDs. The last impression, so the last ad with the same user ID as the conversion gets the credit, right? And there is a look back window. So for example, if you show an ad on, say, Monday, and your look back window, say 10 days, if 2 weeks passes and there is a conversion, it doesn't count. And viewability is also important because, of course, we assume that people who didn't see the ads anyway wouldn't be affected by them, so those conversions would not count either. So there is a big problem, though, and it's going to become even bigger next year when Google changes the third-party cookie policy. Even today on some platforms, especially iOS, cookies expire quickly. And so if the look-back window is, say, a week or 2 weeks or a month, by then the cookie expired and the user ID changed, so there is no way actually to link the existing cookie to the preceding impression unless you go into like device graphs, and which is fine, which is what people do now, that connect devices and connect different user IDs together through different means. Anyway, so in our case, we relied on just cookies, and because of that, we sort of were limited to Android, which still has a good cookie life. So how do we measure incrementality? So there are a couple of methods. So one is called a PSA methodology. So instead of, you take all the users and you run basically two campaigns. One campaign is showing a real ad for the product, and the other campaign shows a public service announcement. So maybe it's protect the bears, doing some good usually. Some users see only the paid campaign ad, and some users see the PSA campaign ad, and then there's an overlap. The PSA should be targeted identically. It should be a clean A/B test, but it's really hard to actually achieve sometimes because you have to, not hard, but labor intensive. So you have to really, if you make any changes to the paid campaign, which happens pretty frequently, you have to make the same changes to the other campaign and make sure that they're still the same. Another thing about PSA is that you still pay for the ads. So there is part of the budget that goes to this experiment actually is spent on showing public service announcements. So the alternative that Yieldmo has and a couple other platforms is called ghost ads. So in this case, there is only one campaign. When an impression opportunity comes about, we randomly assign a user based on the cookie ID to either treatment or control group. And the control group basically sees another ad because we have many ads going through. And at the last possible moment when the user was about to be shown an ad, we just switch it with another one. And that is, first of all, you're not spending money on the PSA. It's much closer together in terms of the control groups, control and treatment control split. Generally, it's easier to maintain also, but it has to be built, so we have it. Overall, for this campaign, we approached it from different perspectives. So first of all, instead of showing static images, we recommended to use high-impact formats, some of those that I showed, that even though they have static images behind them, they actually are somewhat interactive. We use ghost ads for incrementality, so not just to use part of the spend on PSAs. We applied machine learning models to predict the probability of Android users to convert, and then optimized Android spend separately from iOS to target a combination of highly scoring users and highly scoring inventory. And then for the non-addressable media, where the cookies don't live very long, we optimized to targeting high levels of attention, which we know is linked to better performance later on. And indeed, in the result, we showed both incremental lift and an increase in conversion rate. This was a very long project and a great example of all the, not all, but many different possibilities of how we optimize campaigns. So, all right, next topic is technology. So how do we do all of that? So our data science toolbox is, so we use Snowflake for storing all of our data, and Looker for analytics and reporting. All of our code is in Python, with very minor exceptions on the data science side. So like the rest of it, like there is more than just data science at Yieldmo, and we use different languages across the company. For machine learning, we are currently using H2O, and we're using SageMaker in the past and probably might use it again. The data flow, so this is a loaded slide, so let's go from bottom to top. So on the bottom, we have the Yieldmo operational data. So all the data that we have so the metadata about the campaigns, the settings of the ad servers, and all the impression data and everything that comes through our serving. So that goes into the model layer, which is owned by data science, where there is typical, machine learning pipelines where you have feature generation transformations. We build models, produce scores and predictions, but we also use some statistical models that don't use machine learning, which is fine, and they perform really well too. As the output of that, we put scores in predictions in a data layer, which is still Snowflake, and then built on top of that, there is an optimization layer, which is campaign performance strategies, some bidding strategies, so throttling strategies. BYOM is bring your own model generation. If we want to take our predictions and put it on another platform for an advertiser, for example. Then there is an application layer which has numerous applications that each use the same data and share some of the optimization layer to achieve whatever, to make decisions in production. For the real-time evaluation of ad opportunities, let's say we have data in Snowflake and there is new data coming in. So it passes through the model layer where we score, we make predictions and put it back in Snowflake and generate those predictions. Then for the applications, we have a cache layer sometimes that is more easily accessible and smaller. And then the ad server application accesses this cache layer when it gets an ad request, it forms a key. So the cache layer is a key value store. And maybe we have default predictions if there is a cache miss, if there is something new that we haven't seen before. And then the ad server application actually makes a decision and does something. So there is an action at the end. So how do we know that our predictions work and how do we know that our models work? We do a lot of A/B testing. And most of our A/B testing, besides the incrementality for performance for advertisers, we actually test our models, we test our features, we test our optimization strategies by usually splitting the traffic into a treatment group and control group randomly. And also, it's also a strategy to roll out new features that we first roll out features on small percentage of the traffic and then increase that. And by doing that, we're actually able to move faster in the right direction. So to summarize, Yieldmo helps advertisers and publishers. We evaluate ad opportunities and optimize spend. We have very strong attention measurement technology, and we use that with machine learning to make decisions in real time. And we also provide next generation formats that help us both improve performance and improve the user experience, as well as providing more data and better data. We know that user-initiated interactions with ads provide a strong signal for optimization, and we use A/B testing as much as possible. Thank you very much. And any questions, and feel free to email me at sergey@yieldmo.com if you have any questions after this presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. It looks like we've got time for one quick question from the audience. What is unique about Yieldmo's media optimization process compared to others in the market?
Yes, thank you. So, well, our access to attention data, which I talked quite a bit about. Another aspect is that while we do work with cookies, much of our optimization methodology does not actually rely on cookies, and this allows us to optimize the so-called unaddressable media. And finally, as I mentioned also, our very granular view of the data and the ability to activate models at that level let us find pockets of high-performing inventory and ad opportunities where others might miss them.
Great, thanks. Well, everybody, let's meet over at Sydney's presentation coming up. She's on Spotify, and I will meet you over there. You can link through the lobby or from the pop-up that'll come up in just 1 second. See you there.